historical literature was extremely common back then.
This is just a simulation. This is just a simulation.
Mark himself probably did not believe he was writing history. He was writing a symbolic message. He was writing a gospel, the good news, and symbolizing it using, biblical parallels, using parallels to pagan religions and so forth.
There are these other gospels, and there are the Apocrypha, after all. There are apocryphal New Testament and apocryphal Old Testament stories that frankly, were too folkloristic, and they got thrown out because people thought these couldn't have happened, therefore we get rid of them. But of course, some of the apocryphal stories are as interesting as the regular Bible.
So they kept in walking on water and rising from the dead, but the others, those were not too outlandish.
There have been attempts to it's called demythologizing. There have been attempts mostly by Jesuits and other intellectuals who say, who are upset by in a sense, the folklore, if you like. And they say, let's make this more intellectual. Let's get rid of the folklore. Let's get rid of the virgin birth, which it seems unlikely. Let's get rid of all this stuff. But of course, if you take away the folklore away from the Bible, you don't have a heck of a lot left except begat, 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 begat.
Well, in the case of someone like Caesar Augustus, around whom many of the same myths clustered, we know there nonetheless was a Caesar Augustus because he's intricately tied into the history of the time, and many secular historians talk about it. You can't rewrite history without Caesar Augustus. But at the very 2 points, Jesus appears to be locked into history. These stories are either still mythical, like the slaughter of the innocents derived right out of the book of Exodus, or they contain outrageous improbabilities, such as the Jewish Supreme Council meeting on Passover Eve to get rid of these guys. It's just out of the question. Or Pontius Pilate letting go a known killer of Romans, an insurrectionist, Barabbas, and just letting Jesus be thrown to the mob after, however, trying to get him off the hook as if he has to have a vote on it. It just defies any kind of historical verisimilitude. And then when you realize, well, there were other ancient Jews and Jewish Christians that believed Jesus had been killed a century before under King Alexander Jannaeus. Or in the Gospel of Peter, it says that Herod had Jesus killed. Well, how could this be a matter of such diversity if it was a recent event that people remembered? It just begins to make you wonder, is this man really part of a historical time stream? Or doesn't it begin to look like someone has tried to put a figure, originally mythical, into a historical framework and made various stabs at it?
Can you give me an example of a story that started as fiction, that's known to have been fiction, and then it became considered real with the addition of details?
Well, we've seen this any number of times in, say, our Glurge stories, where stories have started out as actual works of fiction, where they were written by identifiable authors. They were written and provided as works of fiction. And they have since gained a life and a spread on their own, where they are now told and relayed as true stories, as this really happened tales, and are believed as such.
You ever read that news story about the guy who was found dead and they couldn't figure out how he died? But when they did the autopsy, they found out he had a can of Spam shoved down his throat. Turns out he was a spammer, and that's why he got killed. People like the moral of that story, which is why I made it up. And when I first posted it on my weblog, I labeled it as fiction.
Jesus' life does conform to the hero pattern. It's a hero pattern with so many incidents. Raglan gave a score. He took actually the Oedipus story, of all things, as the basic model, and then gave other heroes scores as to how many of the 22 points they had in their lives. Because it's Raglan's pattern that is the one that I used. His mother here's the hero of tradition from Raglan's The Hero. I'm getting this from the Study of Folklore, an early book that I edited. His mother is a royal virgin. His father is a king, often a near relative of his mother, but 4, the circumstances of his conception are unusual. 5, he's also reputed to be the son of a god. 6, at birth an attempt is made often by his father to kill him, but 7, he's spirited away, and 8, reared by foster parents in a far country. 9, we're told nothing of his childhood, but 10, on reaching manhood he returns or goes to his future kingdom. 11, after a victory over a king or a giant or a dragon, he marries a princess. 12, 13 becomes king. 14, reigns uneventfully, but 15 prescribes laws. 16, later he loses favor with his subjects. 17, is driven from the throne of the city. 18, he meets with a mysterious death. 19, often at the top of a hill. 20, his children, if any, do not succeed him. 21, his body is not buried, but nevertheless, 22, he has one or more holy sepulchres. So Oedipus gets 22 points out of the 22. Theseus gets 20, Romulus 17, Hercules 17, Perseus 16, etc. I don't remember off the top how many Jesus got, but it was high.
You are just an illustration.
There are other similar savior figures in the same neighborhood at the same time in history. Mithras, Attis, Adonis, Osiris, Tammuz, and so forth. And nobody thinks that these characters are anything but mythical, and their stories are so similar, most of them in fact having some kind of resurrection or another, sometimes even with celebrations after 3 days and so forth, that it just seems like special pleading to say, oh, well, in this one case, it really happened.